Hi everybody, welcome to the channel. This is Blue Liner Milsurf. It's a channel celebrating on all about military surplus firearms. On this version, we are going to start a series on Swiss rifles, starting with way back with their very first black powder cartridge called the Vetterli. Hey, if you like the video, please hit the like button, leave a comment or a question if you have, and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more content. So these are what are known as Swiss Vetterli rifles, named after a man by the name of Johann Friedrich Vetterli, who was the actual developer, although, as we'll see in a moment, didn't really kind of do it all on his own. So going back to history, we're going to go back to the 1860s. And of course, after the Civil War, everybody was still using muzzle loading percussion cap rifles. And we were gradually moving, especially in Europe, towards those black powder cartridge, where we took the black powder, we took the bullet, we stuffed it inside an actual metal casing, a cartridge, we put a primer on it, and it became a self-contained mechanism. No longer did we have to stuff powder and bullets down muzzles and add percussion caps. We could just use one single metal cartridge. The very first to adopt that were the Swiss. And the Swiss not only adopted it, but they kind of made the best and the most advanced black powder cartridge repeating rifle in the world when they did that. So let's talk about the history of this. So in the 1860s, the Swiss really desired to have the best rifle available. And the rifle that they wanted was actually in the American West. It's the Winchester 1866. I'll put a picture of that Winchester 1866 right there. The Winchester 1866 is a lever action repeating rifle with a tube magazine. And it fired rounds that would hold in the tube, and then when you work the lever forward, an elevator would lift from the tube magazine inside the receiver up to the height of the barrel. And then when you push the lever back, or when you brought it back, the bolt mechanism would push the round into the chamber and lower the magazine down to get the next round. The Swiss loved it. They wanted to buy it, and they went to Winchester and said, we'll buy it, but we want to make them in Switzerland. We don't want you to make them and ship them to us. We want to make it in Switzerland, so we need all the technological know-how and the machinery to do so. Winchester said, would love to do that for you, but it's going to be quite a few years. We're a little busy right now with making rifles for the United States West as we were moving west. We're a little busy with that right now, but maybe in the future we'll get to it. Swiss said, nah, we're not going to wait. So they came back to Switzerland, and they brought in a guy by the name of Johann Friedrich Vetterli. I'll show a picture of him right there. Mr. Vetterli was working at a company called SIG at the time in Switzerland, and they came up with the Swiss Vetterli rifle, which was, for all intents and purposes, almost exactly like the Winchester 1866, except it went with a bolt rather than a lever. So these were the features that are on the Swiss Vetterli rifle that they came up with. So the bolt here on top, we'll start with this one. It is a bolt action. You feed it the rounds through a side gate right here. The magazine is underneath the barrel all along here, and it holds 11 rounds. And you could actually put a 12th round on the bottom of the elevator. The elevator is right here, and the lifter mechanism is right here. And that lifter mechanism is activated by the bolt. A little later on in the video, I will show you how that works. There is a channel underneath the bolt here, and the lifter mechanism is an L. So when the bolt comes back, it lifts it up. When the bolt goes forward, it shoves it back down. I'll show you that later. But you can see how it works here. We'll take the rifle, we'll pull it back, and there's the elevator. You see that the elevator doesn't come up till the bolt's almost all the way back. That way the round doesn't get caught underneath the bolt. And then when we push the bolt forward, the elevator stays up there. It allows the round to get pushed in before the elevator goes back down to get the next round. The tube magazine has a spring follower, and once the elevator goes up, that follower is kind of shut off. And then once the elevator comes back down, it releases, and the next round kind of gets shot out into the bottom of that elevator. That elevator is exactly the length of the round. Now, the round for these were actually rim fires. I'll put pictures of what the rounds look like right here. They're rim fire, which means they don't have a primer in the middle of the end, the bottom of the cartridge. The entire bottom of the cartridge is a primer. So anywhere you hit on that bottom of the round is going to set it off because it's rim fire, not center fire. Center fires have a primer in the middle of that bottom of the cartridge. Rim fire, the entire bottom of the cartridge is the primer. And I'll show you how the bolt deals with that a little bit later in the video as well. So Mr. Johann Friedrich Vetterli, having stolen a good part of Winchester 1866 systems to put on here with the side loading, with the elevator mechanism, and Swiss adopted these rifles in 1869. So in 1869, before most other European countries even had a single-shot black powder cartridge, the Swiss had a 12-round repeating rifle, the most advanced rifle in the world at the time. Now, you say, how do they get away with that? How in the world can they just steal Winchester, the 1866 Winchesters, side-loading, elevator, all that stuff? How can they just do that? Well, in Switzerland at the time, there was no patent system. In fact, Switzerland did not develop a patent system until 1888. So there was no way for an inventor or anyone to sue, and if someone used their patent, which was, I believe, the reason why Switzerland wanted all their rifles made in Switzerland and nowhere else. As a matter of fact, there were 10 different manufacturers in Switzerland that made these rifles throughout the next 15, almost 20 years that these were in service. So they had them made in Switzerland where there would be no patent issues because, well, there was no patent system. So we can take Swiss Vetterlis and put them into two categories. We have early versions and we have a later version. When it was adopted in 1869 as the most advanced repeating black powder cartridge rifle in the world, the Swiss started making these, and within a couple years, they upgraded it in 1871, and they weren't big changes. The Swiss tended to make very small, subtle changes. So some of the things they changed from 69 to 71 are these. In the original 69, there was a dust cover over this, over the loading gate here, that you could move down and then move back up. That's a way of keeping, dirt and gunk out of there. By the time we got to 1871, they felt they did not need that, and it was removed. On the other side of this, there was actually a lever here, which was a magazine cutoff. That magazine cutoff, when you activated it, would stop any further rounds from coming out of that tube magazine, and then you could just single load the rifle. The Swiss felt they didn't need that. They trusted their soldiers not to waste ammo by that time, so they removed the magazine cutoff as well as the dust cover and called it the 1869/71. The other change they made was to the rear sight. And in 1869, the numbers on the rear sight were in what they call Schritt. A Schritt is a pace, and that's how they judge distance because Swiss are very famous for their marksmanship, and they were very exact. And they used Schritt in 1869, which is a pace, I think it's like 27 and a certain 27 and a half or 27 and 3/4 of 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 inches would equal 1 Schritt. And they were in Schritt. By the time we get to 1871, they had switched over to the metric system, so they changed the rear sight to be in meters. So those were the changes from the 1869 to the 1871. And so that's why they call this the 6971. This Vetterli rifle is of a later version. It's the 1878/81. And so we can take these rifles and put them into two categories, the early versions and the late versions. The early versions were the 69 and the 6971. The later versions were the 78 and the 7881s. So let's go over some of the changes that they did. So in the earlier version, a very flat butt plate here. In the later version, they gave it a very curved butt plate. They felt that helped with marksmanship, so they redesigned the butt plate from the early versions to the later versions. They also changed out the rear sight. So you see on the 6971, it's a very simple sight. It goes up and down, and that's all it does. They put a much more advanced sight on the new ones where they could actually dial in with a much better rear sight for marksmanship. The Swiss were fanatical about marksmanship. As a matter of fact, a funny story aside, just before, although they're not way after these rifles, the Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany visited Switzerland just before World War I. And he made a note to the president of Switzerland at the time that they only had an army of about 250,000 men at the time, and that the Germans could invade with 500,000 and just on a whim if they wanted to, and there's nothing the Swiss could do about it. And if he did that, what would the Swiss do? Well, the Swiss president looked at the Kaiser and said, well, we would shoot twice and go home. So the Swiss put a huge amount of their pride in marksmanship. It was everything to them. So some of the other things that were changed from the early version to the later version, we see on the earlier version, there's checkering on the stock. On the later version, there is no checkering. Also, they changed out the barrel bands. If you look here on the early version, there are 2 barrel bands and a nose cap. On the later version, there is only 1 barrel band and a nose cap. So they changed that as well. And once again, the dust cover, the magazine cut off, and the Schritt, that was all changed from the 69 to the 71. They also changed the style of the trigger housing here from that to this. I don't know why that made a difference, but apparently they felt that that was a needed change. So we have the early versions, we have the later versions. Either way, they both use the same rimfire 41 caliber Swiss rimfire round, and they used that as long as they were using Swiss Vetterli rifles, which are black powder cartridge rounds that I showed you a picture of just a while ago. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stop the video, and I'm going to disassemble this early version because we need to do a cleaning. We need to clean the stock. We need to clean all the interior parts. This is a new to me, and I need to take it apart, make sure there's no rust under the wood, and all the parts are cleaned and degreased and everything. So we're going to do that, and once I get it apart, I'll come back on the video and show you this one completely disassembled, and I'll show you how we take the bolt apart, because the bolts are identical in all Swiss Vetterlis. They're the same. How you take apart in one is how you take it apart in all of them. So I will show you that, and then we're going to clean it, put it back together, and this one will then officially enter my collection, and I will have 2 an early version and a later version of Swiss Vetterlis in my collection. So we're going to stop the video while I do the disassembly on this, and I'll be right back to you. Be right back. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We have our Swiss Vetterli model 1869/71 completely disassembled, everything except the bolt here, which I'm going to show you how we disassemble that. So let's go through these parts. This is a new to me gun. I just recently acquired it. So I take everything apart, make sure that we inspect and clean everything. So we'll start with the stock. The stock actually looks really good. There are no cracks in it. No cracks in the wrist, nothing that we need to fix. There is some dirt and oil on there that's easily removed. We'll look at the fore end here. We have our checkered stock. They do have this extra piece that goes through the bottom of the receiver just as an extra hold on. This is actually the magazine right here. So inside this tube is this follower with the spring that goes all the way in there, and they fit 11 rounds in there. It's held on by this piece that screws onto the end right here to hold the follower. So the stock looks good. There are no cracks or anything, nothing that needs to be fixed. I think we just need to clean it up and do a couple coats of boiled linseed oil. So now let's look at the metal. If we look at our main piece here, our receiver and our barrel, we do see that there is some surface rust. You can see that there is some surface rust on here. That's very easily taken care of. We do have, it's kind of dirty. So you can see that it's going to need a cleaning. So you can see on there. And we may want to re-blue some of these areas that are worn. So we'll consider doing that as well. And then all the other parts here, everything is here. Everything is correct. Nothing is broken. But we do have, like on our trigger assembly here, you can see a whole lot of dirt and gunk there that needs to be cleaned. So we're going to do that. Well, I don't see any other rust. So we just see a lot of dirt and gunk that needs to be cleaned. Our barrel bands look really good. Our nose cap looks good. The springs that hold the barrel bands, just a little bit of surface rust on there, and it'll all come off very, very easily. So that's the metal parts. Here is our lifter mechanism, the L-shaped, and our elevator. After I clean this up, I'll show you how that all works a little later on. So in the meantime, let me get this out of the way so I don't damage it. And I'm going to show you how to take the bolt apart. So this is the Swiss Vetterli bolt, very similar to the Italian Vetterli. Almost identical, except that this is a rim fire. And you can see in the rim fire here, it's kind of got these two little prongs that stick out, rather than in a center fire, you would have a hole in the middle and a firing pin that comes out through the center here. But this is a rim fire, so they put these two prongs on the side, and they felt that having two prongs was a better way to set off a rim fire than a single firing pin in the middle. So to take it apart, it's very simple. We have our what's called the knurled cap right here, and all we have to do is unscrew that. Now, this is the firing pin, the end of the firing pin. When it's sticking out, you can see that it is in the cock position. This is a cock on open bolt. So as soon as we cock it, or we bring that handle up, it's going to cock, and then we take it out. So it's in the cock position, which means the spring, which is right under here, is in tension. So we need to be careful as we're taking and unscrewing that, because as soon as it releases, we're releasing all that spring tension as well. And there it goes. So our knurled cap is here. We can take our cap here that serves no purpose other than to cover the firing spring, so we don't have to look at it. This is our firing spring. This is our firing pin. Remember, it hits those prongs up there, so it does not have a point. It's not a pointed firing pin. But we do need to make note of the differences in the top of the firing spring and the long tang that comes out here. Goes to the sear of the firing pin on how it goes back in. And then we have our handle with our locking lugs at the base of the handle. That just slides off. And then we have our prongs here that will come out hopefully very easily. There we go. There's our firing pin prongs. And the only other thing to take off is our extractor. Here's our extractor. It does come off very easily. Just push it back a little and lift up, and it comes off. And now we have our bolt body. So that's how you disassemble the bolt. And of course it is, we can see it's very dirty. It's going to need some cleaning. So that's going to be it for this segment of the video. It's going to take me a few days to go through and clean and scrub all this, take care of the rust, perhaps do a little rebluing over here so it looks better. We're going to spend a couple days just on the stock, cleaning it, and then doing boiled linseed oil with 24 hours between applications. And of course, we're going to take every single metal piece here and we're going to clean them and get all that gunk and junk out of here and make it look as good as we can. So I will get back to you with the rest of the video. The next segment will be in a few days after I've gotten all of this cleaned, after I've gotten the stock completed, and we're ready to put it back together. And I'm going to show you how that lifter mechanism works inside the receiver and along with the bolt. I'll show you how all of that works when we come back after I've cleaned it up. All right? Okay, welcome back, everybody. We have finished cleaning the rifle. We took a few days to make sure we got everything right. Let's start with the stock. We have the fore end here. I think it came out pretty well. We did basically a clean degreasing of the wood, and then we did 3 coats of boiled linseed oil and then another coat of tung oil. I like to end with tung oil because it dries fast. It does not, if the weapon gets hot or something, it won't seep or anything, and it does really good at sealing the wood. So I always end with tung oil, and then we did some polishing wax. So I think the stock came out pretty well. As for the parts, we'll take a look here. I think we got it all nice and clean. I went ahead and I reassembled some of the parts that had pins, like the trigger and the trigger guard and things like that. So it all came out really well. You can look at the bolt body here, all nice and clean. Everything here is cleaned, and our lifter mechanism. So what we're going to do is start putting this back together. I did the little parts here, and then I'm going to show you how the bolt and this lifting mechanism works outside of the gun. So the first thing we're going to do is start with the magazine. So the magazine is this bronze piece or brass piece that's inside the fore end of the stock. So it has a follower here that is just a really long spring. Make sure you do not break the spring in any way and that you're careful. And then once you get it to a point, then you kind of push it in, and then we have our cap. And this cap is what will go on. We put it in, and then we screw the cap in. And that is what holds the follower in. So we'll give it a couple more turns to make sure it's all the way in. It has to be all the way in and completely seated in for it to fit inside the receiver. And there we go. All right, so you see that we have the push. So when the rounds are pushed in, it goes in, and you can end up putting actually 11 inside there. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is going to be to put the stock in. So I already put on the butt plate and this, the sling swivel, move that out of the way here. So we're just going to go ahead and put this on. It goes between these 2 tangs, and it's 2 screws that hold it on. Just going to make sure that it's all the way on. Sometimes you need a little persuader. There we go. And the back screw goes into the wood. So we just put the back screw in. And that just goes into the wood. The next one is the long one, and that actually goes from the bottom tang to the top tang right there. So you can actually see that it goes all the way through. Kind of have to push it in and then screw it. Whenever you're doing 2 screws on the same piece, there you go. Make sure they're both tight. So now you can see on the top tang that came all the way through. So we know that now we have our buttstock solidly on. Next thing we'll do is put in the fore end, which just sits in here. Well, before you do that, you have to make sure that this piece is all the way out. So this piece right here is kind of an extra little thing, and it goes through this little slot right here. So see, it goes through that little slot right there to make sure that we are seated properly. So the first thing you do is push that through. Let's get our little persuader here. There you go. Now that is through, and it comes out this side over here. And that is one way to hold the buttstock on. Now we'll put our 3 barrel bands on. The first one is this one, and this is the one that went all the way at the back here, because this has a screw in it, and these 2 have springs here. So we'll put our first barrel band on, screw that down, and then the other 2 barrel bands go on, and they just kind of snap in place. I may be out of the frame here, but you'll see them in just a moment. So this will be that barrel band. Just to be sure, we'll tighten up just a little bit there. On Swiss Vetterlis, the screws go on the right side. And then we have our nose cap. It goes on, you gotta put it in, turn it around. And there you go. And there's the nose cap on, and that little hole is where the spring goes. So now we have the rifle back together, except for our lifter mechanism and the bolt. And that is all we have to do. So let's put the bolt back together, and then I will show you how it interacts with this. One of the little quirks on a Swiss Vetterli is you cannot just take the bolt out without taking the lifter mechanism out of the bottom first, and I'll show you why here. All right, putting the bolt back together, first thing we will do is take our extractor and put that in, and it just pushes in and down. Kind of push it a little forward there, and it should just snap in right there. All right. Then the next thing to do is put the handle on. And the handle has a little cutout right here, and that goes right there, so you know that you're on right. All right. Now we have already put our prongs in here. I thought I did. Yes, they're in there. The prongs are in there. So you can see them right there. The prong, those two prongs are in there. Now we put our firing pin or striker in. Put that in with the big section pointed downward. Now that that is in, and then our big hefty firing spring goes over that. And then the cap. Now this is where it kind of gets a little tough, because the way to do this now, there's two ways to do this, is we kind of have to push this cap on, and we're fighting against the spring there because it's all the way in the cocked position. So there's one of two ways you can do this. We can just start pushing in really hard and try to spin it at the same time, so in hopes that when we push it down far enough, the cap will catch these threads. So see, without this thing, that's where the cap would go. But we have to get it down there, and we have that spring in the way. So one way to do it is to push in as hard as you can and hope that you get it down far enough that it's, and we actually did. There we go. The other way to do it is to take it out of the cocked position and then put it in and then bring it back to the cocked position. So either way, it will work. So put it, and then we'll do it all the way. There we go. So it's in the cocked position, and everything is good. So on the bottom of the bolt, we see this channel right here. This is where this part of the lifter mechanism goes. So here is the elevator. Here is the lifter. So it kind of goes into the gun like this. And we would put it in here. And the way it works is that the top of this runs in the channel right here. So take the lifter off so that you can see that when the bolt is pulled back, it pulls the lever up. And when the lever goes up, the elevator mechanism will come up and bring the next round up. And then when you push the bolt forward, as if you were going to cock it, it'll push the lifter mechanism down. So it will push the round in while lowering the elevator mechanism back down to pick up the next round. So that's how the elevator system works. So when you're putting this back together, because this runs in the channel, you cannot take the bolt out of the gun without first removing the lifter mechanism, because it's in that channel. And if you tried to take it out with the mechanism still in there, all you would do is keep hitting it. So the first thing we do is put our lifter mechanism in. To do that, we have to, there is a little sleeve here that will hold it in. So we're going to put our, make sure we're fully tight in there. We are. And then we're going to go in. We have to get this out of the way so that we can put it all the way in. And then we go ahead and put that little sleeve in. And now we are set. Now we have to put the lifter mechanism in. Now where it is right now was fully forward, so it would be down. So we're going to leave the lifter mechanism down. We put elevator here, and now we can go ahead and insert it. And there's a hole right here that we have to match up. But once we get it forward enough, that hole will match up. Here we go. And we can put the screw in. Screw that in. And now we have our lifter mechanism. When we pull it back, the lifter mechanism comes up. When we push it forward, it goes back down. Up and down. That's how it works. Okay, so that is it. That is the rifle all completely done and reassembled with the bolt and the lifter mechanism all completely done. And that is going to be it for this video on the Swiss Vetterli rifles. This is the 6971, and previously in the video you saw the 7881 and all the differences between them. So that's it. The next video in our series on Swiss rifles is going to go from black powder cartridge rifles to the Schmidt-Rubin, which came out in 1889, and that one was the first smokeless powder rifle for the Swiss, which led to the 1896, the 1911, and eventually the K31. And we will discuss all of those coming up in future videos, all about the Swiss rifles. So hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, share the video if you like, and subscribe for more content. Thanks for hanging out with me today and going through the rifle, the Swiss Vetterli rifles, and all about these beautiful pieces of military history. So thanks for hanging out with us today. We'll see you next time, next Sunday. Happy Sunday Gun Day to y'all. Have a great rest of your day or rest of your week, whatever the case may be. Bye-bye, everyone.